Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're plunging into Beth Thomas's insightful book, Powered by Happy.
Yeah, it's a great one.
Now, if you're picturing, fluffy, generic self-help advice, maybe think again.
Definitely.
This deep dive is really about unearthing truly actionable strategies. Ways to cultivate more happiness, especially in that huge chunk of our lives we spend at work.
Right.
Imagine waking up genuinely energized, actually excited about your day, rather than just, tolerating it. That's the kind of shift we're going to explore.
And what's fascinating, I think, is that Beth doesn't just hand you a definition of happiness. Not a standard one, anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Her core idea is that happiness is really personal. It's about you figuring out what brings you joy and fulfillment, personally, professionally.
Yeah.
It's different for everyone.
Absolutely. It's a very personalized journey she maps out.
Exactly.
So our mission today is to distill the most impactful insights, the practical techniques from Powered by Happy to help you, our listener, start cultivating that kind of lasting, authentic happiness. Okay, so let's start with Beth's fundamental argument. She says, true happiness isn't just found in, external things.
Right, not just the new car or the promotion.
Exactly, or a bigger paycheck. She argues it's fundamentally a mindset. She calls it an inner compass that lets you experience joy, contentment, really, regardless of what's happening outside.
Yeah, it's about how you orient yourself.
And what's particularly sharp about how she defines this inner compass, it's not just some vague feeling, is it?
No, not at all. It's your deeply internalized values, your sense of purpose. That's the mechanism, she argues.
Mm-hmm.
When it's properly calibrated and you actually listen to it, it guides your choices towards real fulfillment, even when, external pressures are pulling you really hard another way.
And Beth's own story really brings this to life, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
She had most people would definitely call a dream job. International brokerage firm.
Super successful, traveling constantly, big deals.
Yeah, it seemed like she had it all from the outside looking in.
But that turning point for her, it was so vivid. She's in London, closing a major deal, feeling the buzz of success.
Right.
And then she gets that call home. Her little girl, Amanda, just 3 years old, miles away, crying.
Oh, wow.
Whispering, "I miss you, Mommy." And in that second, Beth says the whole dream job thing just shattered.
Yeah.
She didn't feel successful. She felt trapped and angry, actually.
That crystallized the real cost, didn't it?
It really did. A cost she realized she just wasn't willing to pay anymore.
It really makes you pause, makes you reflect. For you listening, what are your non-negotiables?
Mm-hmm.
What are those core values, those relationships that if you compromise them, even the biggest success feels kind of hollow?
Is it family time? Creative outlets? Maybe just quiet time for yourself?
Yeah, her experience really highlights how unique that definition of balance and contentment is for each of us.
And that leads right into a crucial distinction she makes, which is the difference between, fleeting happiness.
Right, the buzz from buying something new or a quick win.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Versus a deeper, more lasting happiness.
Right.
And that, she says, isn't just a mood. It's a state of being, rooted in those core values, in that inner compass.
Not immediate gratification, but sustained alignment. That makes sense. Hashtag 2. The techniques for choosing happiness.
Okay, so if happiness is an inner choice, this active orientation, how do we actually do it? How do we choose it, especially when work is so demanding?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Well, Beth lays out several really powerful techniques. We're going to dive into a few that really stood out from the book, things that are super actionable, and they all kind of center around shifting your perspective.
Okay, let's get into them.
All right, first up, balancing realism and optimism.
Okay.
Now, this isn't about pretending bad stuff doesn't happen. That's the realism part. You acknowledge it. But the optimism part is about truly trusting that things will eventually work out, that they'll improve, even when you're right in the middle of a challenge.
So it's faith in the process, not just wishful thinking.
Exactly. It's an act of trust.
There's a story in the book about an employee, Katie, that illustrates this perfectly.
Yeah, I remember Katie.
She was so reliant on her managers for validation, for praise. So when they eventually left the company...
You felt totally lost, right? Adrift.
Completely. Her motivation just tanked because her happiness, her drive, it was all tied to those external sources.
Yeah, her anchors were gone.
And Katie's journey then became about shifting her perspective, finding her own internal motivation.
Right. Her old definition was purely transactional praise equals happy. When that disappeared, she had to do the hard work, really, of finding what actually drove her from the inside. It's a great lesson in self-reliance, building that internal locus of control.
That quest for internal drive flows so naturally into the next concept, doesn't it? Self-awareness. Another key technique Beth talks about.
Absolutely. And this is one I think many people find challenging, but also incredibly rewarding when they practice it.
Definitely.
Self-awareness, in Beth's view, it's more than just noticing your reactions. It's about cultivating what she calls attentional control.
Attentional control. Okay.
Yeah, actively training your mind to, step back from unhelpful thought patterns and refocus on that inner compass we talked about.
So you're shaping your emotional landscape, not just observing it or being swept away.
Precisely. It gives you that crucial pause, that space to choose your response, especially with difficult people or tricky situations, instead of just reacting on autopilot.
That makes so much sense. I've noticed personally when I can manage to pause, even for just a couple of seconds, instead of firing back when something frustrating happens at work,
Yeah?
the outcome is almost always better. It dials down that immediate stress and stops things escalating unnecessarily.
It's not always easy to remember in the moment, though.
Oh, definitely not. But the payoff is huge when you do.
It absolutely is. Okay, so the third technique we wanted to highlight is thinking about the worst-case scenario.
Now, this one sounds a bit counterintuitive for happiness, doesn't it?
It does. But the power here, Beth argues, is in stripping away that vague, amorphous fear.
Right.
When you actually confront the absolute worst possible outcome, walk through it step by step, you often realize it's not nearly as terrifying or catastrophic as your imagination was making it out to be.
Ah, okay. You shine a light on the monster under the bed.
Exactly. And even if it is genuinely bad, the very act of planning for it, preparing for it, gives you back a sense of control. And that drastically lessens the anxiety.
That's brilliant.
Right.
I can see that with, say, prepping for a big presentation. You're terrified of forgetting your lines. But if you actually think, okay, what if I forget? Well, you could pause, look at your notes, recover. It's not the end of the world.
Right. Or worrying about a project deadline. What's the actual worst case? Maybe a difficult conversation, a delay, probably not getting fired on the spot.
The dread is often far worse than the reality could ever be.
Spot on. And the final technique we'll touch on is meditation.
Ah, yes. This comes up a lot in wellness circles.
It does, and for good reason. Beyond the well-known benefits like stress reduction and better focus, Beth really emphasizes meditation as a tool for that attentional control we mentioned earlier.
Right, linking back.
It's dedicated practice time for quieting the mind, focusing on your breath, just being present. It acts as this profound reset, mentally and physically, helping you regularly recalibrate that inner compass.
And I know some people get intimidated thinking they need hours.
Right, chanting on a mountaintop.
Yeah. But Beth implies even just a few minutes can make a real difference.
Absolutely. And the research backs that up. Stronger immune system, better sleep, improved emotional well-being. It's a proactive step towards happiness, not just reacting when things get tough. #3. Minimizing worry and cultivating gratitude.
Okay, these techniques sound great, really powerful foundation, but let's be honest, worries, negative thoughts, they still creep in, right? Especially at work.
Oh, for sure. They're persistent little things.
So how does Beth suggest we deal with those mental intruders when they show up?
Well, she introduces another really crucial insight here. We actually have far more control over our thoughts than we tend to believe. And ultimately, she says, worrying itself can be a choice.
Worrying is a choice. Interesting.
Yeah, and her really valuable contribution is distinguishing between two types of worry. She calls them fact-based worries and imagination-based worries.
Fact-based versus imagination-based. Okay, break that down.
So fact-based worries are grounded in something tangible, something real happening or likely to happen. Imagination-based worries are the endless what-if scenarios, the catastrophizing we do in our heads.
Gotcha. And the way you handle them is different.
Exactly. For the fact-based worries, the key is to focus on what you can control and then take concrete action. The book tells Lisa's story. She was genuinely worried about losing her job because of company restructuring. That felt pretty fact-based.
Okay, real possibility.
Right. So instead of just stewing in the fear, she got busy. Updated her resume, reached out strategically to her network.
Took action.
And she ended up landing a better job. Beth's mantra here is so clear. Action is the antidote to worry.
Action is the antidote to worry. I like that. It really resonates. It stops you feeling like a passive victim.
Precisely. It shifts the power dynamic immediately. Now, for those imagination-based worries, the what-ifs.
The ones that keep you up at night.
Those ones. Beth's framework is all about challenging them directly. Ask yourself, Okay, what's the actual evidence for this?
Right. Is this really likely?
Is it really going to happen? And honestly, even if it did, could I handle it?
It's
Like cross-examining your fear.
putting it on trial.
Yeah. Vetting it against reality.
Yeah.
And often, they just crumble under scrutiny because they're baseless.
The book has another great example from Lisa, right? Where she worried for weeks about feedback on a proposal.
Oh, yeah. She was convinced her boss hated it, imagined all sorts of negative outcomes.
In the reality.
The boss loved it. Was just completely swamped and hadn't had time to respond. All that agonizing was totally self-created stress.
Wow. Our imaginations can be our own worst enemies sometimes.
He really can. So the next logical step is, how do we actively shift away from that worry-centric default mode?
Towards something more positive.
Exactly. And Beth is really firm on this. Even in the toughest times, there is always something to be grateful for. Always.
Mm-hmm.
And focusing on gratitude intentionally, it fundamentally shifts your perspective. It doesn't deny the difficulty, but it broadens your view of what else is true, what else is present in your life.
Okay, but how do we make gratitude a consistent practice, not just a fleeting thought when we remember?
She suggests a really simple but profound daily habit. Start each day by consciously listing things you're grateful for.
Just listing them.
Yeah, could be tiny things. A good cup of coffee, the sun shining, a kind word, someone said.
Doesn't have to be monumental.
Not at all. It's not just about feeling good. It's an intentional act. It sets a positive emotional and cognitive tone for the whole day. It actively counteracts that default to worry tendency we all have.
I love that. It's like setting your emotional compass for the day, and the more you practice looking through that lens,
the more it becomes your habitual way of seeing. It's active reframing.
yeah, makes perfect sense.
And the book also tells Jake's story, the CFO who seemed to have everything.
Right, the prestigious job, the perks.
All the external markers of success. But he realized he was missing out hugely on family time, which was a core value he'd let slide.
Mm-hmm.
And he eventually made this incredibly brave choice to quit. He recognized that aligning his actions with his true values was way more important than the job title.
Wow.
It shows that sometimes choosing that deeper, lasting happiness means letting go of something that looks good on the surface.
To embrace something that's truly better for you, that takes courage. #shit5. Embracing laughter and packing happiness for work?
Speaking of things that bring genuine joy, Beth also talks quite a bit about laughter.
Ah, yes. As a powerful tool for happiness. Almost underutilized, maybe.
I think so. It's not just a pleasant side effect of happiness. She frames it as a natural mood booster, an active stress reliever.
And there's real science behind that, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. Laughter isn't just psychological, it's physiological. It actually reduces stress hormones like cortisol.
Okay.
It boosts your immune system, can even act like a natural pain reliever. Beth argues it's a way to chemically change your brain state, building resilience and positivity.
Like a biofeedback loop for joy.
Exactly.
I can definitely feel that difference after a good laugh. And she also highlights how it works in the workplace too, right? Diffusing tension, building connection.
Yeah, making things feel lighter. She tells that hilarious story. I think it's quite memorable. About driving off from a gas station.
Oh, yeah. With the pump still attached to her car.
Right. Mortifying. But instead of completely panicking or dying of embarrassment.
Which I probably would have done.
Me too.
Yeah.
But she managed to find the humor in it. She even laughed about it later with her boss.
That's amazing. It shows how laughter can help you navigate those awkward moments, takes the sting out of mishaps, gives you permission to be human, flaws and all.
Exactly. Not taking ourselves or life's little absurdities too seriously.
Which is so important.
And this really leads us nicely into Beth's final, very practical concept. Packing happiness for work.
Packing happiness for work. I love that phrase. It's so evocative. It just captures that idea of actively finding joy and fulfillment in your daily work, not just putting up with it until quitting time.
Well, think about it. We spend so much of our lives working. It really shouldn't be a constant source of dread or unhappiness.
True.
And Beth really emphasizes that for many people, work isn't just about the paycheck anymore. It's about feeling engaged, having a purpose, making some kind of meaningful contribution.
So she really encourages you, the listener, to do some deep reflection on your own work situation. Like, what parts do bring you joy?
What could realistically be improved?
And crucially, what are your absolute non-negotiables? What has to be there for you to feel like you can actually thrive?
It's about taking ownership, isn't it? Actively shaping your work experience rather than just letting it happen to you.
Yeah. And she shares Amy's story as a really stark illustration of this.
Right. Amy had what looked like an amazing job, prestigious company.
Looked great on paper.
Totally. But the culture was deeply toxic. Constant pressure for excessive overtime, making her sacrifice time with her young child. It was a major clash.
A misalignment between the job's demands and her personal values.
A severe one. And the core takeaway from Amy's experience is just so vital, I think.
Which is?
Your well-being, your fundamental happiness is more important than any job title, any perceived status, any salary figure, full stop.
Yeah.
Sometimes choosing happiness really does mean having the courage to walk away from something that's making you miserable. Even if it feels risky, even if it looks like a step back to outsiders.
And Amy did find something better, didn't she? A company that valued her.
She did. It proves that aligning your values and your work environment is not just possible, it's paramount for long-term happiness. Hashtag tag outro.
Wow. Okay, we have covered a lot of ground today from Powered by Happy.
We really have.
We've looked at defining your own happiness, that idea of the inner compass.
Choosing happiness proactively.
Those techniques for choosing it, minimizing worry, the power of gratitude.
Embracing laughter. Can't forget that.
Definitely not. And finally, how to genuinely pack happiness for work.
I think what consistently shines through all of it, the biggest theme maybe, is that happiness isn't passive. It's not something that just happens to you if you're lucky.
Right.
It's a conscious choice, a daily decision, really. Something you actively create through your thoughts, your actions, how you choose to see things.
Absolutely. And I'm really struck by that liberating idea that work can be a source of joy, of fulfillment, not just something you endure.
Yeah, finding that sweet spot where what you do aligns with your values, your passions.
And crucially, even if you're not in your quote-unquote dream job right now, Beth offers real, practical ways to make your current situation more enjoyable, more meaningful.
And it's important to remember, you don't have to figure all this out alone. Her principles really point towards leaning on support networks, finding mentors, using available resources.
That's a great point. Asking for help is okay.
Absolutely.
And please don't underestimate laughter. Sometimes that's the quickest way to shift perspective, isn't it? Reminds us life's too short
to be anything but happy. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Powered by Happy, maybe here's a final question for you, the listener, to sit with.
Okay.
If you could design your ideal workday, what would it actually look like? And maybe more importantly, what would it feel like?
Ooh, I like that.
And then what small, tangible steps could you maybe start taking today just to move a little bit closer to that vision?
That's a really powerful question. It prompts you to envision work that genuinely aligns with your values, your passions, your own definition of happiness.
Yeah, maybe it's about setting better boundaries to protect your time or energy.
Or intentionally building in more tasks you actually enjoy. Or just finding moments for quiet reflection during the day.
Exactly. Remember, happiness isn't some fixed destination you arrive at. It's a dynamic journey, right? It's got ups and downs, challenges, wins.
For sure.
But by embracing these principles we've talked about today, from Beth Thomas's work, you really do equip yourself with the tools to navigate all of that with more grace, more resilience, and, yeah, hopefully with a smile more often.
You absolutely have the power within you to actively create a life filled with more joy, more purpose, more meaning. It really starts with defining what happiness means for you. And then taking those deliberate, maybe small at first, but empowered steps to make it your reality.
And maybe one final thought to leave you with. Happiness is surprisingly contagious.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. When you consciously choose happiness, when you engage with these ideas, you don't just transform your own life. You actually organically inspire and uplift the people around you too.
That's a wonderful thought to end on. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We really hope you feel inspired to live a life that is truly, authentically powered by happy.